Good morning, ma'am. My name is Rachel C. Salomon from BSCS4. Today, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about aggressive, submissive, and assertive behavior of a person. Today, we live in a world where business, degrees, and even entire relationships are conducted behind the screen. As a result, employee frustration and miscommunication is at an all-time high, with tone alone being misinterpreted almost half of the time in email, leading to endless wasted hours and heightened anxiety. According to Erica Dawan, the contributor, there are 5 phrases that we must avoid to make us sound passive-aggressive. First is per my last email. It means that you did not really read what I wrote. Pay attention this time. Second, for future reference, it means is let me correct your blatant mistake that you already knew was wrong. Third is bumping this to the top of your inbox. It means that you're my boss. This is the 3rd time I've asked you. I need you to get this job done. Fourth is just to be sure we're on the same page. It means that I'm going to cover my idea and make sure that everyone who refers to this email in the future knows that I was right all along. Fifth is going forward. It means that do not ever do that again. It's likely that you've used one of these phrases before without even realizing that it could be perceived as passive-aggressive, or you may have been on the receiving end, which can also be frustrating. And also, there are 4 things successful communicators do. First is don't respond to messages or emails when you're angry or frustrated. This prevents miscommunication, wasted time, and regret. If you feel emotionally hijacked, save your email message as a draft and revise and send it when you're in a better mood. Second is assume good intent. Instead of calling someone out for screwing up, step into their shoes and ask yourself, what are some reasons why they might have made this mistake? It's better to people exactly what they need to take action. Sometimes, just adding a quick brief so that they don't have to go back and read through previous emails and writing, here's what I need from you. Or here are the open dates again, is helpful. Third is show empathy and encouragement. Replace imperative words like do this with conditional phrases like could you do this? When delivering feedback, begin your message by expressing appreciation using words like thank you for or excellent job on. If your boss or even a client sends you a passive-aggressive email, fight that urge to send an even more pithy reply. Lowering your actions down to their level will only escalate the tension and increase anxiety. Lastly, avoid digital ghosting. Not to get back to someone, here's a quick guide to remember. If you can answer in 60 seconds or less, respond immediately. If it's urgent, respond immediately or let the sender know you are working on it. Make an appointment with yourself on your calendar if you need to. If it's a matter lacking urgency, don't stress. Block out time to follow up after your convenience. If you're the one waiting for a response, unless it's critical that you get a reply ASAP, remember that people may have a lot on their plates. If you follow up twice and don't get to the reply, switch to a different medium, like phone call. I'm gonna show you a video to understand or enlighten us about this topic.
Bradford. The purpose of life is to live well. Those who live well are sages, successful philosophers, Buddhas, saints. Sub, short for submissive, training should be about challenging and encouraging the sub to live better by uncovering her own true nature, by helping her realize that she already is a sage and living accordingly. This awakening is samadhi, kensho, superconsciousness. It requires detachment from all thoughts, judgments, conceptualizations. It is becoming opening to being. That's the chief justification and purpose of sub-training, as opposed, for example, to anything to do with sex. Every act is an opportunity for awakening. However, every act is also an opportunity for continued distraction. Because all the consequences of an act are relevant to its moral evaluation, and because it's impossible to know all the consequences of an act, it's impossible to know the rightness or wrongness of an act. In other words, acts are always like shots into the dark that may or may not hit their targets. Those who are mature realize this. On the other hand, even though it's impossible to know whether the whatness of an act is right or wrong, it's possible to get how an act is performed correct. An act is performed correctly when it's performed egolessly with no thought. Strictly speaking, then, it is actions rather than persons that are enlightened, awakened or not. Actions performed egolessly with no thought are enlightened, and all other actions are not. Enlightened actions are fostered by paying attention, by increased mindfulness, by great focus and concentration. The more someone's actions are characterized by full attention, the more that person is living like a sage. The ultimate purpose of sub-training is to have the sub practice living more like a sage. Sages think only when thinking is beneficial. Otherwise, unlike non-sages, they are free from the tyranny of useless thoughts. A sub is a voluntary slave who wants to serve her dom, dominant, master, usually sexually and domestically. The more each of her acts in training is characterized by full attention or awareness and is free from useless thoughts, the more successful her training is. Since her submission is voluntary, she may end it and leave at any time. Her submission is based on consent, which she freely gives because she wants to be loved. Ultimately, the sub, not the dom, is in control of the relationship. To love is to act so as to benefit the beloved. Being loved skillfully is for the good of the beloved. The relationship between the dom and the sub is, or should be, based on love. Essentially, the dom's task is to hold space for the sub, to guide and protect her, to enable her to become more herself. Loving is giving. It is not taking. The dom's chief task is to love the sub. It's helpful to distinguish two different levels of experience. The first is related to pain and pleasure, which are products of the body's nervous system. Pain and pleasure are intensified by occurring together. The end is orgasm. Most doms focus only on giving the sub the quantity and quality of orgasms she desires. This is often achieved by increasing frustration and delaying the sub's gratification. The second is beyond pain, pleasure, and all concepts. It requires ego reduction, and therefore the sub's sustained cooperation and effort. The end is ecstasy, samadhi, the opening of becoming to being. Being submissive is not being passive. It is the sub's duty to communicate with her dom. The more intelligent, self-aware, articulate, and honest she is, the more effective the communication. The higher her self-esteem, the more effective the training may be. She ought to communicate to her dom her predominant learning style, her personality type, and her primary and secondary love languages in order to enhance communication, as well as her sexual experiences and sexual preferences. The more she understands her real needs and desires and communicates them to her dom, the more effectively and skillfully the dom may be able to love her. She needs to communicate her limits clearly. She wants to let go of all useless thoughts and focus awareness on the present moment, which is the only moment when life is lived. A bad day for the ego is a good day for the soul. Universal limits are a no-brainer. For example, anything illegal or immoral, such as sexual activity with children, animals, persons who are physically or mentally unable to consent, or persons who have withdrawn consent, are always out of bounds. It is the sub's duty to communicate all hard and soft limits to her dom, and it's his duty to respect them, even if he occasionally stretches her soft limits. It is the sub's duty to learn the difference between sensation and sensitivity and to free herself from craving more sensation. While some sensation is good, more sensation is not better. Why? More and more sensation correlates to less and less sensitivity, whereas less and less sensation correlates to more sensitivity. The idea is to use what is natural to transcend it. If sex is made into a means for something else, it becomes less satisfying. It quickly degenerates into lovers merely using each other, often mechanically, to achieve orgasm. Instead, if it has no end beyond itself, it opens up the fullness of the present moment beyond thought into genuine interconnectedness or unity. Like any other act, sex can be an opening to being. The idea is being love, as opposed, say, to being in love. The emotional roller coaster is to be abandoned in favor of abiding joy. It is the dom's duty to use everything he has learned about the sub to bring out the best in her. He is a father figure, guiding and disciplining the sub in a loving way. Perfect dom would be self-disciplined, experienced, selfless, trustworthy, sensitive, strong, attentive, fun, caring, consistent, empathetic, compassionate, intelligent, confident, fearless, assertive, well-educated, and financially secure. He should be able to train the sub using rewards and punishments, including structured humiliation and objectification, to become all she is able to be. A dom is a leader who protects his sub and keeps her safe, and in the best possible physical and emotional health, while she is in the process of becoming all she is able to become by diminishing her attachment to her ego. It's helpful to think of a DS relationship as similar to dancing. His focus should be on how his sub is feeling, and not on how he is feeling. Being a good sub and being a good dom are learning experiences, and the learning never stops. The interplay begins with consent and communication. The play between the sub and her dom occurs. It's followed by aftercare and debriefing. The point of the debriefing is to articulate lessons learned. Since nothing in becoming abides, even though formal DS training will end after a certain number of days or weeks, partners may continue practicing DS as a way of life indefinitely. Peace.
And that's the end of my presentation. I hope it is understandable. Thank you for watching. Good day.